Welcome back to the Alex Macheras show.
Hey, whoa. I'm here from the start this time.
If you were listening correctly, Dan, I think you joined a bit too late. I had clearly welcomed everyone back to On Air. I was just in the process of saying, I'm Alex.
Okay,
you're
so
Dan.
just like on WhatsApp, you're editing what you said after you said it. I saw your message yesterday and then you edited it to something else.
This is fake news.
No, I don't think you want me putting on my story like a screenshot where it says
I don't think you want me to put on my story the screenshots that in fact, this is kind of a common thing, guys. When there are a string of certain messages from Dan, we could be podcast planning, we could be talking about topics, he'll throw in some kind of controversial opinion. I will delete all the other messages around it, screenshot it so that it's nice and cleanly out of context, and then he knows it's going in a folder for the day in which we cancel him. No, God forbid.
It's mutually assured destruction. That's what they call it. Anyway,
so there is so much.
We're back. I've been sick, by the way. I'm sure you guys can hear it. I'm still recovering, sounding pretty nasal, but the show must go on.
Yeah, you're going to power through all of the subjects, topics, debates that we want to get through, but also the storytelling, because there is a whole bunch of things that have happened. I mean, we have even saved, there is so much, Dan, for example, that I don't know, because now we have this new, instead of, I'll tell you on the podcast. I'll tell you for the first time on the podcast. I'll hear it.
Yeah. There's so much we don't want to tell each other. Yeah. But there is some parts because I have had the chance to tell you in person about some of this stuff.
Yeah.
Many people might not realize that, we may be friends, but we literally never see each other in person. The last time we saw each other was before the pandemic, which puts things into perspective.
Actually, when was that? Oh, that was in Qatar. That was that time.
December 2019, when we had just come from the Maldives. I was trying to convince you guys to go to the Maldives, and you said, never. If we have to take a seaplane, we're never going to the Maldives.
No. I said, I don't mind. When you spoke with my family and scared them about the idea of the seaplane, they said to you, never. And you're all these convincing things. Now, obviously, I know I'm familiar with the seaplane transfer in Maldives and the Trans-Maldivian, that expensive little necessary airline.
Yeah.
Okay. And you rock up and you start telling my family, oh yeah, the pilots don't wear shoes, they go barefoot, and and when there's a storm, it's fine, it's business as usual. And they're sitting there like holding on to your every word, and I'm thinking, great, so they're never going.
This is such a twisting of the truth, because I know that, I feel like you would love to go to the Maldives because you guys love the beach, but at the same time, the thought of being on a remote island, tsunami risk, even if you had to take a boat, I feel like you always err on the side of caution, while I get detained at gunpoint in Kenya, which we're saving for next week, because there's just
I can't quite believe we are saving that for next week, and you're just peppering it in as a trailer.
Exactly.
Even I am waiting for that episode.
Yeah.
Can you let me know when that drops, please? Because I need to know what has happened. Yeah. So we did end up seeing each other. How did all of this happen?
Ali, we've obviously been talking since we started the podcast. Oh, Dan, stop by Doha, and I'm always in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, I'm gonna book a flight to Doha, and then I'll land, and you'll be like, sorry, I'm on a plane to LA. It's always gonna be something unexpected pops up, right?
That's true, but at the same time, had you have not, I mean, you're like me, right? When we try, and when people ask us, what are you doing in 4.5 weeks? That is much more difficult question than if someone was to ask what you're doing in a few days. I tend to, the success rate of being able to see people on short notice compared with, plenty of notice is much higher for short notice.
Yeah.
And the good part about, this region particularly, is that there's always people passing through. In the last week, I've had guests from the US, guests from Canada. Again, they were all transiting, but they managed to
way to
extend
make
that
me
transit.
not feel special.
Yeah, you were just guest number three. I had Jimmy
From
he's based
Jimmy
in Bangkok.
Fallon?
He works in aviation. No, not Jimmy Fallon. He's even
Jimmy
better.
Kimmel.
And better than Kimmel. So anyway, you were. How did you end up? How did you explain to the viewers, to the listeners, how all of this happened?
Okay, so I was actually thinking maybe on the way home from Kenya, I'm going to fly via Qatar to meet Alex, but it was all a bit, as I said, I didn't entirely trust that Alex would be there. So I was thinking, we'll see. I don't know when, we'll end up meeting up. But then I was in Kuwait, about to fly to London. I sleep like normal, and then I wake up at 6 a.m. to an email from British Airways that they have canceled my flight to London. I'm going to make a whole video about every time British Airways has screwed me over this year. Every time it's happened, I've texted Alex like, again, this is why I just have, I really feel like it's a curse. But then basically I needed to get to Norway because I had this super complicated ticket taking me ultimately to Kenya, but via London, via Kuwait, via Norway, via Frankfurt, just to get to Nairobi. So I wanted to get my ticket, pick up where I could, which was in Oslo. I checked what flights there were available, and the only option that was even remotely comfortable or reasonable was Qatar Airways Business. So I thought, okay, this could be my time to meet Alex. I didn't even know if you were in Doha, but I texted you and I thought, okay, 6 a.m., you're not going to be awake. But I texted, and a few hours later, and I was actually waiting
Whoa.
I swear it was like
hours
8 a.m.
later.
when you responded.
No, excuse me, I was already doing radio when you had text. I responded to you when I came off air, as I told you, just imagining me sleeping in. And no, I was already on radio. My phone is set on to do not disturb. Okay. And you can imagine, right? I know that we're not going to be recording the podcast on that day. There are no commitments. I've spoken to Dan maybe 3 or 4 days earlier only. And
I think like
I
2
wake
days
up.
before. Yeah, like 1 or 2 days before.
It always feels longer for me. Anyway,
Because you miss me.
So no, it's because, in a negative way. So I am, in fact, I'm just looking.
Yeah, I'm looking at
for
the
it
text
now.
too.
See, you put, so imagine, guys, I wake up early, I start my radio, and I can see messages coming through from Dan, but I haven't clicked. And then I open up my phone after, and he says, plot twist, we're coming to Doha today. BA cancelled our flight, and we're rerouting with an overnight. So I put, hey, wait, what? He put, I'm in Kuwait. I'm supposed to fly Dubai, Kuwait, Heathrow, Oslo, Frankfurt, Nairobi. I was like, huh? And he said, but of course BA have cancelled the Kuwait Heathrow overnight. So now we're screwed. So in my head, all I can hear is that once again, British Airways have delivered the mandate of the people to ensure Dan has additional content for YouTube.
Thank you, British Airways.
Basically, yeah. So he said, and so all that was available was a Doha to Oslo, which is tomorrow. I said, a morning flight. He said, yes. So I still don't quite know what he means about coming to Qatar. And then he finally says, I've just booked a Kuwait Doha flight, which is for the lunchtime of that day. He put, so in case you have any time this afternoon, we'd love to hang out for a dinner or an ice cream. So I'm like, here we go. I knew I'd be ambushed eventually, right? The guy just rocking up to Doha. And
I know what you were doing behind the scenes. You put on celebrate good times. Come on. You're dancing around. Dan is coming.
So I thought, here we go. Right. Being ambushed by the co-host. I mean, what does he want? Right. So, no notice, no, not even
That's how it
the
needed to
polite
be
notice
done.
of the night before, right? I mean, just let me know the night before. So I put like, okay, no, I put, oh my God, yes. What time do you arrive? Where are you staying? So he says we arrive at 13:15, blah blah
Yeah,
blah.
literally nothing was
So
decided. Like it was, yeah, all just last second. I figured let's book the earliest flight, highest odds of Alex not having any other engagement, at least at some time. Then I land in Doha. Great flight on the A350 1000, completely empty, really nice. Land in Doha, get like a super convenient gate, and then you're like, take the metro. And I'm like, okay,
yeah,
well,
take the metro, be sustainable because Qatar has
be
a state
sustainable.
of the art metro. It is beautiful, and he's like going to like find a cab. I said to him when he told me where he was staying, I said, right, take a metro. It literally goes direct to your hotel. And he
Yes.
was like, oh, I'm not sure.
This was
You know, it's like-
very much expectations versus reality. So Alex is going, it's state of the art. It's amazing. You'll love it. So
Excuse me,
and then-
I sent you a photo of it only when I
Yeah.
sent you the cabin of the metro. I think you said to me like, okay, that does look
Yeah, and then he went 30 real, which is like what, $8, $9. And I was like, huh?
yeah, but that's for a day pass.
Yeah.
For a day pass, it's
But how
very
much
cheap.
am I going to be going around? Anyway, so I was like,
I don't know. I didn't
not
know.
sure.
I thought you'd take a hint.
So then I told Oscar, Alex wants us to take the metro. He's like, amazing idea. Let's take the metro. So I'm like, oh,
see?
okay.
Intelligent guy.
I think you and Oscar should be texting on WhatsApp instead of us.
Well, you message me. Imagine this. So he ambushes me. Yeah, literally within 5 minutes of him texting that he's even coming to Qatar, he texts me landed, and I'm thinking, my God. And then I'm like, oh, being polite, being the helpful one that's here. You can get the metro directly. He messages, can't you send us your driver? What a man of the people. I put to him,
Who has a
he's
driver?
busy.
No, he wasn't.
He's busy doing anything else. Okay, so
With an X
so
at the end. He's
we-
busy doing anything else, X. So then I say,
Yeah,
probably giving
just
you a
different.
foot massage. Yeah.
that was absolutely inappropriate. Okay. Completely inappropriate. So
Anyway,
you say that you're going to.
I say
get
I'm going
yourself
to take a
sorted.
taxi. Yeah. And then, because we had like
Yeah.
loads of checked bags, then Oscar, blah, 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 convinces me to take the metro. So I think, fine, at least Alex will guide us through it. So, first of all, it's a 10-minute walk from the terminal to the metro. By then, we would have been halfway to our hotel in a taxi. We get to the metro.
Oh my God. And how long do you think it takes to reach the Heathrow Express from the main arrivals level?
Yeah,
of
it's
Terminal
horrible,
5?
but I'm
Oh,
just comparing to a
right.
taxi, which, for context, is very, very cheap in Qatar. That's what I should mention.
Yeah,
Like,
they are very cheap.
Yeah.
True.
it would, we
Yeah.
would have saved money by taking a taxi. So anyway, we get there.
Carbon footprint, and
The staff was completely unhelpful. Like, couldn't explain how to. We're like, we want just a one-way ticket. There's no such thing as a one-way ticket, and I'm just like, oh. So you had to explain.
and they were.
you had
By
to
the way,
explain from a distance.
I'm going to interrupt you. They were correct. You were confusing them because when I said
Which,
to you,
what
because
city doesn't have a one-way ticket system? That's bizarre.
No, the cabin you were asking for, which was what they call Gold Club, which again is still very, very cheap, right? But it's beautiful. I said to you, you can only buy a day pass. I couldn't have been clear about this. Then you're messaging me, this guy says there's no one way. He doesn't know anything. I'm like, he's right. I told you clearly. So then I'm literally saying to him, go to the machine. Right, you'll see these options. Yes? He's like, yes. I'm like, click that. Okay. Click. Oh, he goes, okay, we've
Yep.
done it now.
So
This poor guy must have just seen two Americans, not two Americans, but at least one American, come over and say like, sir, that in New York, we don't, blah, blah, blah.
So anyway, $16 later, we go down. It's a 10-minute wait. So already we would have been at our hotel. We get in, and
That's
granted,
just because you missed one.
we get onto the metro. Granted, that was amazing. It's beautiful. If you get the front seats, like you can look straight ahead in the tunnel. That was super cool. I think the ride took like 20 minutes or something.
And I think explain, you get the front seat because there is no driver.
Yeah, exactly. That, which is kind
There
of
is
like,
no driver on the metros.
I guess it's safer, but in a way it's like, okay, like, this is just driving itself. We get to, I think we were getting off at DECC. So then you're like, the only thing that might not be great, you say, is leaving DECC station and crossing into City Center Mall. You
Yeah.
cross into the car park of the mall and then you're in. So we
Yeah.
have so many bags. So then we're walking out the station. There was no crosswalk, so we're just like jaywalking,
There is
hoping no one will
definitely
find
a
us.
crosswalk. See what I mean? There is
Then
a
we're
cross. I
walking
know.
through the
I do this
garage.
journey. Listen, there is a crosswalk. You come out of DCC station, you turn right, and on the left, immediately there is a zebra crossing.
So then we're walking through the garage, and you know how hot garages get in the summer in the Gulf. So we're walking through there. We get into the mall, which like definitely not the nicest mall in Doha. I've never been there before, but we're
It's
walking
the
along.
oldest one.
Yeah.
It's the oldest mall here. It's it's not
you
it's
could
not
tell.
the state of the art modern ones.
But we're
Yeah.
walking along. I'm passing. I mean, we passed some great stores. We passed Home Center. If you guys have ever been to the Middle East and you haven't been to Home Center, stop by. We love it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing, to be honest.
Just even my mom, when she was in Dubai, she filled like half a suitcase with Home Center stuff to bring to Sweden because they have so much like nice, good stuff. Anyway, so we passed by there, not sponsored by Home Center. And then we finally, oh yeah, and there was no sidewalk to get to our hotel because we were not staying at the Marriott. So there was no like direct connection. So we were walking on the road with the cars for a few meters.
See,
with our
when I remembered you had luggage, I then thought, dear God, what have I done? Because doing this without luggage, completely easy. When he told me they didn't just have one bag or two, but they had a large amount of luggage, I then thought, oh God, maybe I should have just let them get into a car and go door to door rather than taking public transport. But you did say that the train was very, very cool.
Yeah.
You even messaged me after saying, okay, this is cool.
I texted you before the walk to our hotel. So all in
That
all,
was the last 10 seconds. I mean,
Yeah.
really. It was,
all in
it was
all,
nothing.
that took us an hour. It cost us more than a taxi would have cost. That would have taken 20 minutes and no effort. So all in all, I don't know how happy I was with that advice. But and the funny thing was you said, okay, let's meet up at 4 or whatever it was. And I was like, oh, we're gonna have so much time. We get to our hotel and it's like, oh, we have to be there in an hour. Like, hurry up.
Excuse me, you didn't have to be anywhere. You came here. You ambushed me. It's as if I somehow decided, Dan, please come to Qatar. That sentence never left my mouth. Listen,
Anyway,
speaking seriously,
yeah, it was when we met up, it was lovely. We went to Evergreen on the Pearl, a vegan restaurant. That was so funny because you had your one Qatari friend there who I've seen like he's on your social media more than you are. I was like, oh my God, hello. And then people just keep dropping in like one after the other. It ended up feeling like a meetup, it was amazing.
it was, firstly, speaking seriously, as I said, it was very, very nice to finally see you and Oscar after so long, because I didn't realize how long it had been. It was December 2019. I forget how crazy tall you are compared to everyone. So, you know, I feel like a little bit tall generally in life. My God, I feel ridiculous when compared to you, right? Because it's just, it's crazy. Okay. But it was super nice. So we met on the Pearl. We went to Evergreen, as you said, which is a very, very kind of like Bali vibe.
LA/Bali. So
cafe.
it was very natural for you. Yeah.
Very LA/Bali. I know also that you being vegan, perfect for you to eat in case you are hungry. And we have this nice chilled spot. And you're right, it starts off with us and you and Wahab. As you said, one of my closest friends. He's a professional table tennis player on the national team. And then Ghanim, the owner of the restaurant, is also a friend, passes by and joins us. And then Ayub, who is my good friend from Kuwait. And he's got the Instagram Kuwaiti Flyer. I was supposed to be seeing Ayub that day anyway. You see, Ayub, unlike you, Mr. Dan, Ayub gave me notice, right? He messaged clearly 2 weeks prior, then he checked again
That was
3
risky
days
of him
prior.
to think you'd
and
be
then,
there 2 weeks prior.
Well, he was coming either way, but he wanted to see if I was around, and I said to him, I think so, yeah. I couldn't see anything in my schedule that would mean I was out of town. So I was there. And then on that day, the only thing I was going to be doing that day, because it was a weekend when you arrived, was that I was going to meet up with Ayub, with Kuwaiti Flyer. And so when we're talking in the morning, now I know, and I am now in the knowledge that you are en route, he says to me, shall we meet at 2? And I say to him, we can meet at 2, but if you want to meet at 5, Dan, my co-host, will be with me. And within seconds, he replied, we'll meet at 5. We shall meet at 5. He said, because he's a big fan. He's a big fan of your videos. He's as you in your YouTuber capacity. He's a loyal fan and follower of the podcast as well, which is great.
Yeah.
So Ayub comes. So you're right. Every 5 minutes there was a new arrival. And like my mum and
I was like,
sister are with
my
us
goodness,
as well.
who else is going to show up?
It was chatty, it was loud, we were debating and arguing things within minutes. It was chaotic, it was fun.
Oh my gosh, we were debating everything, and it was so satisfying to me because I realized all your friends are on my side against you. So I was like, this is great.
So where I maybe get away with roasting Dan, just in my nature, that's how it is. Ask my friend Emmy, who I went to school with. She's also a loyal listener, and she's so worried, Dan, for your mental health. She's worried, and I said, why?
You,
she said, I'm worried. She said, I'm worried about the impact of your roasting on Dan. So Dan then gets this beautiful surprise in that where he doesn't roast me back on the podcast, and I invite him to, he just doesn't. Okay.
It's not my personality to be rude.
Well, he was very surprised to see my friends firmly roast me, and I think he just grabbed popcorn, and
I think it was very cathartic for me and Ayub to be like, why is it that every time we fly Qatar, we end up in a 222 777? And then we text you like, it happened again, and you're like, yeah, that's a shame. And then it's like, you're flying some obscure route that's normally an A320, and you're like, A350 1000 Q Suite, I'm back. So we were just like,
you're exaggerating.
So Ayub and I were just like,
you're exaggerating.
Have so much pent up aggression.
You think somewhere like Athens doesn't get an A350? I remember last time you just
it does get an A350 when you're on it.
Yes. It gets an A350 when I am not on it. Also, check Flight Radar. You are able to check these things.
I do.
Okay, right.
I think Ayub and I know. Ayub and I have the aggression.
Well, listen, Ayub said something really funny because one of my friends absolutely says he does not need to listen to the podcast because he was like, why? We speak every day. I don't need to hear what you're telling the world. I get to hear it first. His face was a picture when Ayub said, but guys, honestly, Saraha, like in Arabic, like if I'm being honest, he said, your podcast is the only thing that makes me get up for work and get into the car and look forward to the journey. And where we're like, Ayub, that's so kind of you. My friend is looking at me like, what the?
It was so good. Oh my. He was like, so nice. Ass kisser.
No, but we love that. I love it when people send. Someone had sent me, by the way, I didn't tell you this. Someone had sent me a picture in the Q Suite quad, so in the 4 seats, and he's with his family, and he's got an iPad on the open dining table that opens when you're in the quad configuration.
Yes, thank you.
And the podcast is playing on a night flight in the Q Suite.
Oh,
listening to it, and he sent it to me, and I said, thank you so much. That's so cool to see, people listening when they're on the move and so on, especially when it's so appropriate, I feel, to listen to our podcast when you are airborne.
It is, when you're on air. I mean, exactly. Manifesting having the podcast on some IFE one day, that would be insane.
Yes.
Obviously, we're manifesting being on Lufthansa IFE. the airline we praise in every single episode. Love you,
That's our
Lifty.
first choice. We
Anyway,
should also
yeah.
settle for some kind of content. That I don't know. Does Frankfurt Airport have an app or a
Love you,
streaming
Frankfurt Airport.
platform? Yeah.
We
So
had a
you
great
come.
time.
We have this. Yeah. We have this really fun evening. Did we go anywhere else after that? Yes, we did.
You
We
took us
walked-
to
we walked
Godiva, and we saw the
We went to
very
Godiva.
impressive Doha fountain show.
Excuse me, they are not the impressive Doha fountains. They are these small fountains located outside Godiva. The real Dubai Mall style fountains are in Place Vendôme.
It was
We saw
hilarious.
A very small, tiny thing outside of the Godiva cafe, and we sit there because it's comfortable sofas.
Yeah.
It's on the water. You have the view of the skyline and the Pearl. It's nice and chill. And then there are some small fountains that were located nearby and were placed on. They come on the hour to like Michael Bublé or something. And Dan was Dan was in hysterics.
I was.
This is their
the funny
idea
thing-
of the fountains.
The funny thing is, it wasn't even me. Like, we had just come from Dubai with obviously an incredible fountain show. Then that comes on, and your mom and your sister are like, "Oh no, like not this." Both of them were horrified, and they were like, "Another song," because it just keeps going for like 20 minutes.
It does keep going. You know what I used to say? Back in 20, excuse me, I've just taken a bite of a Kinder chocolate bar. Back in 2016, I used to text my friends here saying, I've come to the conclusion that there is nothing Qatar enjoys more than shooting water up into the sky and watching it fall down again. Because fountains are everywhere. Fountain shows, fountain displays. The whole Gulf loves a good fountain.
Yeah, just because they don't naturally have water. So it's like, actually, there was a New York Times article about this yesterday about Dubai and its relationship with water. It was just interesting because it's talking about like the irony of so many attractions being water based and the fountains and everything.
You'll have to send me that. Or had Dan had messaged the day before, which of course he couldn't because BA cancelled his flight during the night, and that's what triggered the whole Doha trip, we would have recorded together, most likely in Vision in the
Yes.
studio, and we will have had our first joint episode in Vision in a beautiful
In
podcast
Vision?
studio.
What's the Envision video?
In Vision is
Envision.
yeah, but that's the okay. In TV, if we say someone's appearing in Vision, it means
Oh, in
they're appearing.
TV. Okay. In
So I have to get
YouTuber
to the
lingo,
bottom.
it's video.
Do they have full sentences in YouTuber?
No,
lingo?
they don't.
No. So yeah, we would have, but it was all too, he arrived, he ambushed me the same hour, and anyway, so we couldn't. Anyway, please back to your departure from Qatar.
Yeah, so we flew out of Qatar. Amazing, check-in experience, all that. Flying the business suite. And I was amazed. You were amazed. Everyone was amazed that I managed to get 2 business saver seats like one day before on a completely sold out flight. In fact, the flight was overbooked. I asked to check in. They said, 10 seats overbooked in economy and business was full. I was like, ooh. And we paid bottom level in points for these 2 window seats we ended up getting. So yeah, it was great. It was just really interesting because, I mean, obviously you and I are big fans of Qatar Airways. I feel like my expectations are always so high. And then it's like when something, I notice every little thing. And here, there are like just some surprising things where I feel like I'm always spiraling, thinking, oh no, the aviation industry is like getting worse. Things are, cost cutting here and there. But
You do that a lot.
I really do that because I want things to stay good if I like them. And so here, there was like, it's just these small things that no one cares about. Literally no one cares apart from me, I think. But there was not a single hot towel after the meals, which I know they're supposed to give. They gave me like it on my Qatar flight a few weeks prior. They didn't offer it. There were no chocolates before landing. Just these little things that I had to think like, where are they? So I know it's probably they're supposed to be there, but there's something about the inconsistency that I'm like, no, you're supposed to be the most consistent airline. But as soon as I see any sign of inconsistency, I freak out.
But your
some signs of that.
knowledge, like your knowledge of the service on the airlines you fly the most, like Emirates, like Qatar, I guess even like Lufthansa, if they have a
SQ.
service in Lufthansa.
Yeah, on
They,
Lufthansa, I'm like, oh wow, they said hi. Okay, I'll note that down. That was a different.
Yeah, but that is you. But that is you. You're absolutely right. So sometimes you do like, you know, crew can get busy. Crew can, you know, there are different scenarios that can play out on
And
any
as I
given
mentioned, it
flight
was an
that would mean-
entirely sold out flight.
Yeah. So then something super tiny that nobody would notice except you do notice, and then
Freak
it's
out.
true. Instead of you saying, yeah, it is freak out, because instead of you being completely rational about it, like you were just now, and said the flight was totally full, you know, and maybe recognizing when did you dine and how that maybe impacted how close you were to top of descent, and then, or were you away from your seat when this, you know, something like that. You go into full blown, oh my God, Alex, the aviation sector is in free fall. You say like the global airline commitment to excellence is no more from all the big carriers that I've flown in the last week, and here is my thesis as to why. And then you come to me with experiences on Emirates, on BA, on Qatar, on Delta, on everyone.
It is very interesting. I
notice a
talked to
lot.
my brother who works in hospitality right now. He just like he worked for one of the best hotels in the US. He just moved to New York, so he's working at a new hotel there. And he's saying how like my brother didn't grow up around these luxurious things, but because of the hotels and experiences that he's had with me, for example, he knows what incredible service can be, which is what he is providing. But he says that most of his colleagues are like so even taken aback by the extent to which he goes. His managers are like, oh my God, you need to be training our staff because you're so good at this. So my brother is saying like, he doesn't, from his perspective, obviously he works extremely hard, but he's like, I don't understand if there's like supposed to be a procedure. I don't understand people who don't follow that procedure. Different people do different things. I get it, but it is just interesting to me. Like if an airline sets a procedure, it should be followed. Otherwise, remove their procedure to remove the expectation of someone like me to have that thing every time, because otherwise you end up feeling like something's missing rather than something special was added as a one-time thing. Give the chocolates on like a surprise and delight basis rather than it being consistent and then not delivering on it every time.
I think we both know that if the chocolates were offered to you on a surprise and delight basis, you would be absolutely up in arms as to what on earth you did to not deserve chocolates on one flight compared to the other. You'd be like, oh my God, I didn't smile at her enough, or oh my God, I didn't compliment the way in which he served my appetizer.
Yeah.
So
I don't know.
You have
I think that's what's
attention to
good.
detail, which is a good thing.
Yeah, that's what's good in my reviews, and that's why people like watching my videos, because I have such an attention for every detail. And that's why I'm also very critical, because when I see staff like on Lufthansa, for example, doing the very least, not engaging at all, not bothering to follow through in premium cabins, if you ask them for water, them just not bringing it, things like that. I understand there's a lot to think about, but to me, those things, if I were in that job, I can say for a fact, I would always be trying my best, at least.
It's funny, isn't it? Because what happens at many airlines in terms of like the commitment to service excellence doesn't even cross the minds of others, and where others can have great products. Like, for example, I know we've spoken about this before with Air Canada. So I have to fly Air Canada quite a bit to go back and forth to Montreal. And simple question. The ticket that I had was booked by the company that I was positioning to meet, and I could see in the booking the ticket was $9,000. Crazy high, right? Now, don't feel sorry for this company, because they are one of the largest companies in the world, and this is completely ordinary for them. It was on a day's notice, and I could see how much the ticket was worth because it was showing me in the booking. Usually that's hidden. So I just had in my head, you know, wow, supposedly, and because it was the last seat, so it was a full fare J class ticket, and that's why it was so high. And also it was one way, so of course it was extremely high. I was thinking, for somebody to have spent $9,000 and 5 hours into the flight, even consider that it's been worth 10% of what they've paid. Even worth 1%, to the point where I said to the crew, hi, like I very, very, very rarely press the call button because I just feel like it triggers an eye roll in the galley.
Which it shouldn't. Like if you're paying $9,000.
And it doesn't. Some crew would be in touch and say that it doesn't. It's what it's there for. But anyway, I'm just conscious of the bad experiences that some crew can have with other passengers who don't stop pressing it. So I tend to try to catch a crew in the aisle or something like that. And anyway, there's no crew to be seen anywhere, and so I press after about 20 minutes of doing that very modest kind of, I guess, the very British thing of, do I need, maybe I don't need to, maybe I'll just be quiet. And then I'm like, no, but I'm hungry. And the service was hours ago. So I press the call button and he comes over and I say, hi, are there any snacks? For example, like crisps. I never know if I can say crisps or chips. I alter it depending on what airline I'm on. Like crisps, potato chips, or I don't know, chocolate or anything like that. And he's like, oh, yeah, we set up a basket just by the galley and walked straight off. I was like, huh? I think he said they set up a basket by the galley. So then I had this moment where I'm watching him thinking, is he going to get the basket? Or do I go 12 rows forward? Because again, I told you it was on a day's notice. I was the last seat of business to the galley. So after 4 minutes, I'm like, he's not coming back, is he? No. So I unbuckle and I get up and I go over and I'm looking and I don't see anything. And then when I open the curtain, there's a crew cart and there's a basket on there with like 4 bags of crisps. And I'm thinking, do I take this? And then I look to my left and one of the crew sat on their phones and he was like, yeah, just in there. You can take that. I was like, uh-huh. So then I took it and walked back to my seat and had these crisps. Now, fine if the ticket was not worth $9,000. It's like, wait, what? You know, that it's just...
The thing is, the crew are paid quite a lot in Western countries, but then it's like, the crew obviously feels, I'm not being paid enough to walk over to that man with some potato chips. But it's like, doesn't that bring you joy? For me, that would bring me joy to be like, yes, sir, these are the snacks we have. If there's anything else, I can check in economy that you'd like. Isn't that what the only fun of that job is while you're on the flight? Making people happy? Like, to me, it would be, but I don't know.
Yeah, to you. But then it's like, you say that and I'm imagining a whole bunch of Iberia crew just laughing at you.
Yeah, literally. Their whole purpose.
But the attitude on Iberia is... Yeah, I think there's
Iberia long
this is not
haul,
controversial.
Iberia wide body.
Oh,
right?
I mean, I think it goes all the way down to Air Nostrum, but it's. I don't think it's a controversial opinion to have. Like, I never feel intimidated as a passenger unless I'm flying Iberia.
That's because you never fly U.S. carriers.
Yeah, maybe. but my God, the tension.
Yeah.
Of like. You can just feel it's like, don't even think of asking me for something. It's things like that. And it's funny because I used to think, am I the only one that sees this? Is this in my head or whatever? Then I checked online. I mean, you only need to type in Iberia as a keyword on Twitter or check forums or check the real ratings that actual passengers use to provide real feedback rather than, something else. I mean, I don't know how they haven't had this conversation across the company. I don't know if it's a Spain thing. I don't know if it's an IAG thing. I'm not sure.
It is shocking. And that's what blows me away about Finnair. Like, I just have to praise them again because a Nordic airline that has good service, those two things don't naturally go together. But Finnair, I have never had service that wasn't good. Not only okay, but wasn't good on Finnair. Even they have contract crew based in Stockholm and Copenhagen for their Doha flights. I flew from Doha to Stockholm. It was the best service I have ever received from a Swedish person in my entire life in any context. This Finnair contract crew based in Stockholm, like it was incredible. She was like, please, Mr. Dan, please, would you like any snacks? Would you like any drinks? Would you like another hot towel? It was like a VIP. Obviously, Finnair isn't always that over the top, but I just have to say, like, I'm impressed in the grand scheme of things how generally good their service is compared to others.
What would you say? What would you say, like looking at Scandinavia, looking at the Nordic region, looking at there? Are there countries? I mean, you're a local. You are Swedish. Are there countries that are known as, oh, Finland, oh, well, you know, it has the better hospitality and better service than, for example, Norway? Or is it known among you guys or not?
Hospitality is not even a concept. It's not a thing that people think about or talk about. So for someone to be like, Finland has good hospitality, that doesn't even cross people's mind. It's not a thing. People come to work as themselves. They interact with their customers based on however they feel that day as themselves. There's no entering a service role. It's just not a thing, which is why I'm amazed that Finnair, with actually very minimal training, like just 1 or 2 days of crew training, somehow still manages to have crew that really takes their job seriously and performs it generally with a smile and, you know, doing more than the minimum, which we tend to see definitely at SAS.
Well, let's stick with this part of the world so far, because something else pretty cool happened this week while we were waiting to record this episode now, which is that Norse, so Norse is the Norse Atlantic Airways, this new, fairly new low-cost long-haul operator. It's basically Norwegian Air reincarnated.
Version 2, yeah.
So like Norwegian 2.0, kind of. And they've taken a whole bunch of the former staff of the Norwegian Air long-haul brand, long-haul branch, and I mean, they operate the same aircraft, they operate virtually identical cabin, a very similar business model, but perhaps much cleaner and a bit more lean compared with the complexities of Norwegian that at one time had Norwegian Air Shuttle, Norwegian Air based out of
so many airlines
operated. You know, it was just very, very complicated. So that whole group and that whole kind of structure didn't survive the pandemic. But Norse Atlantic Airways, they flew this special mission to Antarctica from Cape Town, where they had flown this week scientists from the Norwegian Polar Institute, along with crew, along with cargo, equipment, and so on, down to Antarctica for multiple research stations. So these scientists were going to the different research stations that are situated across the frozen continent. And it's significant because it's the first time ever that a Boeing 787 Dreamliner has landed on the ice in Antarctica. And the video footage is incredible. You have this beautiful Dreamliner. I'm assuming you've seen it.
Yes. No, I didn't watch it. I was so embarrassed to say.
No way.
I saw it. I mean, I saw it all over my feed, but since I've been sick, I was just like, okay, like for some reason, for some reason, I like just haven't had any interest. And then when you said you're like, well, we'll talk about this today. I'm like, oh God. So anyway, I'm going to watch it right now. I'm going to watch it right
It's on my Twitter. It's on my Twitter. I tweeted it 3 days ago.
Putting me on the spot. Yes. No.
Yeah. I knew I could hear it. I could hear that you had absolutely no clue what I was going on about. Yeah.
Okay, I'll watch it now.
So you see this aircraft coming in, beautifully sunny. It's a 787 landing on ice. It's smooth. It's elegant. It's gracious. And it just serves as another reminder of how, yes, we have airlines to get us from A to B on slim profit margins, to get us there very cheaply, and we demand lower fares and blah, blah, blah. But I love seeing when aviation takes on the other side of why it's needed, why it's necessary, why you are able to facilitate further research of our planet by flying those from Norway, scientists who are focused on this, directly down there. And it's like, no, tarmac runway, no problem. No landing lights, no issue. It's, it's having our incredibly versatile, incredibly capable, modern commercial aircraft that we have flying today, like a 787, performing in a way in which it can so easily do, it just doesn't do in regular operations.
Okay, so a few thoughts. Do you know what time that video was shot? What time the plane landed? This is pretty cool.
I think Go on.
As a Scandinavian, this reminds me of our summers. The video is shot at 2 a.m. You say it's like
Wow.
like, oh, it's a nice sunny morning. It's 2 a.m.
Yeah.
So cool. It flew in from Cape Town. Can you imagine being able to add that route to your flight records? Insane. It looks
There was
so
a video.
cool.
There was a video that appeared on Instagram. I'm sure it was originally a TikTok. You know how it ends up on Instagram
Yep.
about a week later, and because I don't have TikTok. And when I saw it, it was of the crew having their passport stamped. He was like, "We got our passport stamped," and
Wow.
Antarctica.
I have to say, like, the reason this looks extra sleek in the video is because the livery is literally the sky, the color of the snow and the sky. So it just
Yes.
matches perfectly. Wow, so satisfying. And to think that this is 2 a.m. makes it even cooler when you see it. You're like, 2 a.m. in Antarctica in the summer. Amazing.
Yeah.
You know which airline might start flying to Antarctica given how much they're expanding, how much they want to expand? Etihad. Brings us to our next topic.
Yeah, I don't see Etihad going to the frozen continent
No,
anytime
definitely not
soon.
from Abu Dhabi.
But it's true that Etihad have made this announcement where basically Etihad obviously is a much, much, much smaller version of what the airline was just in 2017 and 2018 when it was actively trying to compete as an ME3 airline. So you had the three, Emirates, Qatar, and Etihad. Etihad had the Nicole Kidman campaigns, had the residents, had all these plush new cabins, big expansion, all while racking up billions of dollars of debt. And before the pandemic, Etihad was left with over 7 billion US dollars of losses. Again, this is prior to the pandemic, back when there were no issues in aviation. 2019 for almost all airlines was the best year in commercial aviation history until COVID hit. It's interesting now that you came across this, that Etihad have now decided out of nowhere, oh, wake up, it's expansion time again.
It's so random because we had Dubai Air Show last week. Then
Yeah.
out of nowhere, like a couple days after, Etihad is like, oh, by the way, we're going to grow and triple our passenger numbers in the next 7 years. Tripling in 7 years that's Riyadh Air level, if not more ambitious.
So the reason I was very surprised to see this is because Etihad Airways CEO Antonio Neves, he was at Dubai Air Show and spoke to media, and he doesn't do much media at all. So he had a sit-down interview with CNBC. It was quite a long one, and he also spoke with some of my friends who were present at the air show, journalists. And when they were asking him, so, what's the plan? What's the plan with your remaining A380s? What's the plan with your thing? Everything was super modest with the reply. No, we're not going to be bringing back the rest of the A380s. We haven't decided. No, we're not going to start launching up new routes with the aircraft that we've grounded. Kind of a standard. We're always assessing the viability of routes. Well, everyone says that in aviation, because if you're not assessing the viability of routes, then what are you doing? So that also is a redundant statement. Basically, like, nothing is happening. Yeah, which is what has been the case now at Etihad for a while. They shrank, and they are small and boutique, and they're not trying to be this big, loud Middle Eastern Gulf carrier focusing on transferring the world and shuttling the world via their Abu Dhabi hub. So this is then, and as you say, a couple days later, this big announcement in a keynote interview with Etihad CEO. We outlined the airline's ambitious growth plans for the next 7 years. And it's this huge growth strategy, as you mentioned, that's going to see them triple their passenger numbers. Again, I'm not sure how, unless they start expanding the fleet, and going to expand across all of the different regions. It says that under Journey 2030, the network will extend to over 125 destinations, leveraging its strategic geographical advantage, connecting Asia with Europe. Well, that is the original business plan of every Gulf carrier.
And that's still what Etihad is doing. It's no different.
Yeah, so it's funny that Journey 2030 means they're going to leverage the fact that they are situated in the Middle East, because the very origins of Etihad, Emirates, Qatar, Saudi, and so on is leveraging that position, because something like 70% of the world's population live within 6 hours of this region, and it's it's where east meets west, and you can shuttle everyone through and so on. So it's funny that it's like, it does remind me that someone has said, wake up Etihad, we need you to come back and be big again. And it says, our mandate is clear: to deliver extraordinary customer service, sustainable profitability, and be the foundation for Etihad's contribution to Abu Dhabi's aspirations. And then it was clear for me, because I think this announcement comes off of the back of the opening of the new Terminal A, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So of course that's been a huge project for Abu Dhabi, and in the first paragraph of this announcement, as we say, we've heard that it's kind of business as usual and super calm, things just ticking over at Etihad. In the first paragraph, we see how this growth and this ambitious growth plan, a strategy supported by the airline's shareholder, the ADQ. ADQ, of course, is the Abu Dhabi Investment Authority that is the sole owner of Etihad. I think basically this is the state funds recognizing that this airport now has to serve a stronger national carrier, of which Etihad has moved away from being. It was super happy to be back in the shadow, and I think this is ADQ picking up the phone and saying to what is essentially the national carrier of the UAE, by the way, as you know, okay, you need to go big, go strong again, you need to grow again, you need to do all of this because we funded you for an incredible, what they perceive to be incredible new airport, and if you're not going to fill it and you're just going to continue to stay dormant as you are, what's the plan?
Yeah. I feel like this is actually like what you were saying when we spoke about Akbar Abakar resigning, how this also seems like, unfortunately, in this case, it's one of those very like instant decisions that just someone up top was like, okay, we're doing this now. And the airline CEO didn't even get the memo until it was basically decided. So it's like, okay, now you're doing this. And the question is what spurred that, because a lot has changed for Dubai since the pandemic. For example, their real estate market is doing very well. Emirates is doing very well. Tourism is booming in Dubai. Qatar Airways is now very profitable. Riyadh Air is, of course, coming up. So I think Etihad, or the government of Abu Dhabi, sees all this and maybe feels like they're going to slip behind if they don't have something. You know, they need an airline. They need something at least to stay as relevant as the neighboring cities, actually, that are booming. What do you think about that theory?
I think that's a very fair assessment. I think it's funny that, and they are now, it's like they're trying to suggest that this flatline period now is now about to come to an end, because even in the announcement they say 20 years ago the leaders of the UAE launched a remarkable airline which has established a global reputation. Okay, true. And then everything went south. Everything then went quiet. They lost a hell of a lot of money, as I said, and they retired from the front bench and they said, we're now going to stay in the shadows. That happened about 2019 or so, just before the pandemic. And then now it's like, okay, someone put fuel in the tank again, because the next announcement says our rich past is the perfect starting point for our next chapter, Journey 2030, which, you know, so it's like, okay, so stop flatlining now, yalla, give us a heartbeat and let's go for it. And that's what this announcement seems. I think it's just funny that when he was interviewed on this, when the CEO, Antonaldo, was interviewed on this across the different media engagements he did throughout Dubai Air Show, and he doesn't do very much media at all. There was no energy with any. This wasn't mentioned.
But that's what makes me think that, like, over the weekend, maybe also they saw, maybe the government of Abu Dhabi saw all the big orders that Emirates was placing, Riyadh Air. Well, Riyadh Air didn't place any orders, but they saw all this, and maybe that literally over the weekend made them think, are we taking the right path? Who knows? Like, maybe not. Maybe super.
I mean, it says in the announcement, the opening of our new airport Terminal A is the perfect springboard for our growth. I mean, if you are the holding company, ADQ, that own Etihad, and you're seeing now a large airport with an airline that has given up with trying to be one of the larger big Gulf carriers and is actually just quite satisfied ticking over, being in the shadows, having a decent service, a nice product, but nothing that they want to compete aggressively with, then maybe they think, as you said, right, time to pick up the phone and say, you need to get going again.
When this was announced, I immediately went on Expert Flyer to check the flight loads on Etihad because I was like, yes, they're profitable, but are they doing super well? So I just checked every single flight departing from Abu Dhabi last night, just out of curiosity. What are the loads like? As close to departure as I could, checking the seat maps, empty, 50% at most on most flights. So I was like,
wow,
what? How does this
what a contrast
go together with the announcement?
With the rest of the region where you struggle to find a seat now on any routes, on Emirates, on Qatar, it's packed.
But that's what doesn't even make sense, because why are Etihad's flights not full? They're flying small planes. I guess it's because they don't have the scale to fill every flight with connecting passengers. Anyway, I'm really excited for some Q&As. I hear we have a lot.
Yes, we do. We've got a lot of questions, so let's get to them. Okay, so the first question is from Akshay. He says, hey, Alex, really love the on-air podcast with you and Dan. Would love for you guys to discuss Rolls Royce on one of your shows, especially following the Dubai Air Show with reports of tougher pricing and also durability of XWB engines. He's put, especially given that you first reported on it back in 2019. Thanks and keep up the great show. Well, thank you, Akshay, for your kind message. And for the question, Dan, did you see these reports of what was happening?
And my first thought was, of course, what is Qatar Airways saying about this? Because they grounded the A350 for all these years, but this has never been a complaint of theirs.
No, you're right. And I always check up on the dispatch reliability of the A350, which is basically what is the percentage rate of the aircraft being able to perform as planned without any technical hiccup. So the dispatch reliability is calculated kind of with that method, and it's basically how often the aircraft is able to operate in line with the planned schedule with a success rate of like maximum of 15-minute delay. And for the A350-1000, it's incredibly high. So this aircraft performs. It doesn't need much ground time at all. And you can see this by choosing a global carrier who use the aircraft on a very high cycle basis, like the A350s, 1000s that are based in the Middle East. So who has them here? So obviously you have Qatar that have them. Etihad also now have the 350-1000. Emirates do not. And if you look at the high cycles and the little ground time, you're able to quickly work out that, okay, these aircraft are deemed as reliable. So then I reach out to the airline CEOs directly and ask them specifically on dispatch reliability. And they have told me, I mean, I've spoken over the last week since I saw this all come out, that it's very, very reliable. The dispatch reliability is very high. So Rolls Royce, the story here, have been slammed by two main airline customers. One, Thai Airways International, of course, the flag carrier of Thailand, based in Bangkok. And two, Emirates. With Thai, their issue, have you seen what their CEO said to media?
No, what's going on with Thai? I missed that.
So Thai CEO was complaining that Rolls-Royce pricing for maintenance and for engines is just too high. And actually, they were quite aggressive with the comments to media. We don't often hear from Thai. And yet he spoke to Bloomberg, I believe, and he said, you would think that with a loyal customer like us, we would have a relationship where they wouldn't be trying to rip us off, something along those lines. But basically, he accused Rolls-Royce of upping their prices so high that they can't afford them, and that he thinks that they should significantly, reevaluate their position on this and their pricing before they risk losing Thai Airways, with complaints about how the maintenance costs are high and so on and so on. And as I say, he didn't mince his words.
You know what's funny about this?
Angry.
Do you remember the scandal where Rolls-Royce had bribed the Thai government into buying some engines or something?
I do remember the accusation of that, yes. And also, it contributed to the wider corruption scandal that has engulfed Thai Airways.
Apparently, Rolls-Royce admitted to the UK government that it did bribe. I'm reading a story here from 2022. So
Okay.
they're talking about a bribery scandal involving Thailand's national airline and the British jet engine manufacturer Rolls Royce is back in the media spotlight after the Thai anti-graft agency concluded that their engine procurement deal 3 decades ago was unlawful. So this is way
Yes.
back. But it's
Yes,
funny how it's
you're
coming
right. So
full
this is-
circle somehow.
It's coming full circle because you're right. Okay, this is why I remember, like I said, I remember the accusation, but I couldn't remember what the outcome was. In 2017, Rolls-Royce agreed to pay £671 million to settle the bribery and corruption charges brought to authorities in the UK, but also in the US and Brazil. And in that case, they admitted bribery in Thailand, but the authorities said that no Thai complaint was ever filed and no details were forthcoming. So, as you say, there is a history here, right? And then now you have them slamming Rolls-Royce because of the what they are calling higher pricing. Is that because Rolls-Royce are now offering them the prices that they were offering other customers without the discount? Is it that? Is it the fact that the airline, Thai Airways, is completely and sadly broke financially, and so of course they're just saddled with such debt that they are now in a place in which they can't afford the deal with Rolls, who are, of course, Rolls-Royce is the exclusive engine provider for A350s, of which Thai Airways operate several A350s. I actually did their A350 delivery, the first one, which was one of the best deliveries. One of the best deliveries I did. It was amazing. Really, really good. Yeah, I'm just reading that this investigation that happened a few years ago was one of the largest investigations into corruption ever. Britain's Serious Fraud Office found Rolls-Royce paid massive bribes over 3 decades to win those contracts in Thailand, Indonesia, India, Russia, Nigeria, China, and Malaysia. And so, fast forward to today, they're complaining that they can't afford to pay it. They're slamming Rolls-Royce very publicly. I mean, there's a history there. It's always worth looking into. But so that's one side. The other side, to answer this question, is something that I know you were across, which is the whole Emirates deal and their issue with the A350-1000, the engine on that aircraft.
So basically, they are saying that it performs extremely badly, or it can go much shorter between maintenance cycles in
they're not saying anything about
like the Gulf
performance.
Yeah,
it's nothing related to performance. It's related to the frequency of maintenance.
Yes. So then my question is, where do they get that info if Qatar Airways and Etihad are not having issues?
Which is a very valid point that hasn't been asked enough, that is worth looking into, because you ask here and the dispatch reliability is high. I spoke with Etihad as well. They said they have no issues. I saw some rhetoric that suggested, is this Tim Clark's way into pushing Airbus to re-engine the A350-1000 to some kind of neo option? Maybe a bit of a stretch, but there's something there, because as you say, the data doesn't show any significant dispatch reliability concerns for that engine, and in this region you'd be the first to hear about it. So interesting. We shall keep across it.
Yes.
Let's go to the next question. This question is from David, coming via Instagram. He says, "Hey Alex, following up on the conversation about airline uniforms, what is your and Dan's take on the trend of airline cabin crew wearing sneakers/sports shoes as part of their uniform?"
Next question.
Yeah, and I don't think it should be a thing.
No.
You know what comes into my head when I think of that? Do you remember the French 5-minute airline, Air France's 5-minute airline that was here for about...
Wait, what was
it called?
June.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, they shouldn't wear sneakers.
No, I agree. Next question/comment is from Lucas. He says, you mentioned the case of airlines giving vouchers out during COVID instead of refunds. He said, I had a terrible case with Norwegian. You remember we mentioned this, didn't we, with BA, about the young woman who successfully sued BA because she didn't want to accept vouchers. He says, I had a terrible case with Norwegian. I booked on their London to Buenos Aires route. That was, of course, the low-cost long-haul route that they flew, which was cancelled during the pandemic, then subsequently cancelled for good, of course, because the kind of Norwegian group fell apart during the pandemic and was reborn into something much smaller, leaving me with over £1,000 worth of vouchers to use on their drastically reduced Gatwick routes, which now
Gatwick to
only serve
Malaga.
a few Scandinavian hubs. Trying to contact the airline was next to impossible, facing online bots until eventually we got through, only to be told, sorry, c'est la vie. I've used the voucher only once to fly from Alicante to London via Copenhagen. He puts with a laughter emoji. He puts, just to make the most of my £1,000 credit, which will never get me to Argentina. Really sad to see what airlines are getting away with. Love your work, guys. Lucas, that's horrible. I mean, I understand fully how that has happened. It's as clear as day to us as to how that is the case.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess there may have been a way in which if you took them to some kind of small claims court or some kind of legal action, you may have been able to get a refund instead, as per, following at least the case study we spoke about with BA. But that's horrible. I mean, I admire your adventurous routing back from Alicante to London via Copenhagen, at least to feel like you use the money somewhere.
Yeah. Maybe visit Scandinavia next summer. We'll do an episode with Scandinavia tips, and I'll show, the 5 sites you can see in Gothenburg that take 20 minutes to see.
Sounds thrilling. Let's go to Chris's question on Instagram. He says, hey Alex, a question for you and Dan on air. He says, I recently flew from Copenhagen to Doha to Dubai. He says, connecting at Hamad en route to Dubai, on the way out, there was no security control at Hamad Airport during transit. However, flying back home to Copenhagen, we had to clear security in Hamad Airport. What regulates the need for security screenings at transfer airports would be good to know to better plan and be able to reduce connecting times where possible. Thanks for a great show, Chris.
Well, we actually discussed this together in Doha, just casually.
We did.
And our conclusion was, we have no idea. We have no idea how it works in Doha.
Well, we do have some idea.
Yeah.
We have some idea. So basically, it's based on where you have flown from, right? So their own assessment here is that coming from Denmark, if you are transiting, you do not need to clear security again during your transit at Hamad Airport. But coming from the UAE, it is a requirement. And that is the consensus as far as we know and can tell, and as far as I have been told. I also have heard, though, Dan, that apparently this changes very often as risks do.
But it depends on which gate you arrive at. So I think if you get a bus gate, you might always have transit security, because I was reading about people flying from the US. Mostly they don't get transit security, but if they get a bus gate, they say they do. So I think you can generally say your odds are lower if you're flying from a quote unquote Western country, but it's not a guarantee. It's never a guarantee. Maybe besides if you're on an A380 from London, well, you don't really transit in Doha, so you wouldn't know. But I would say an A380
Well, I have done it.
London,
I have done it when I was flying to China, and it was double A380, right? So it was A380 London Doha, and then A380 Doha to Guangzhou.
In those days, yeah. Wow.
Back in those days, that was 2018. I didn't clear security during transit.
Okay, yeah. So the answer is no one knows, and there's no complete consistency.
I know that it's based on where you depart from, but I don't know how that changes depending on, as you say, the gate / stand / what day of the week it is, and so on. Let me get a decent answer for you, and I'll update you. So, and maybe I'll update on the podcast so that it's
that would be nice. Let everyone else know too.
I was just going to DM
know.
Okay.
I was the one who asked you in person.
So the next question is from Marcelo. He says, Alex, this is a comment on the airline safety video you guys were talking about at the end of the last ep. Have you seen the Latam one? It's quite cool, showing off all the iconic places of Latin America. So have you seen the Latam one, Dan?
I guess I have, because I have flown Latam in the past couple years, but I don't remember it. So I don't mean to sound shady.
It's really
I just don't remember it.
Okay, so it's destination based, as many airline videos are. And the nice part about the Latam video is it is literally experience South America while having this, this safety video with the key safety messaging. Now, to have an airline offer you to experience an entire continent in a safety video is quite cool, because
Quite unique.
they're not just showing off that. They're not showing off a destination. They are literally showing off as much of a continent as they can, which is nice. I'm a fan of the destination based safety videos. I think they're a great marketing strategy to be able to trigger curiosity to the fare paying passenger.
Last week when we were talking about, do these safety videos actually, do you pay more attention or less attention? I realized that at least for Virgin America, that's the only one I can comment on. For me, it's like super helpful once you've seen it enough time to know the lyrics. Because then in my head, I'm like, under your seat, there's a life vest. First class, it's below your center arm.
Oh, God.
You just sing the song in your head to remember what to do in each step. And then you have the answer.
You do.
So you know the lyrics.
That's you. The fact that you think that other passengers are walking off saying first class, it's below, like that. I mean, unless they're frequent flyers, they're not doing it. But it is funny because I can also hear every lyric of that safety video, and yet I never flew Virgin America in my life.
Yeah, there you go.
And
so for some people, it could help in an emergency.
Yeah, you're right. James has got in touch with a follow-up question. If you remember, he asked a question about how United are now boarding a new boarding process from window first, then middle, then aisle. And you remember that we kind of roasted it a little bit because we realized that it's only applicable to the last 50% of passengers, because they're still boarding first class, they're still boarding veterans, they're still boarding business, they're still boarding with children under 12, then under 2, and it never ends. But he says, do you think that other airlines are going to follow with this kind of model? My gut instinct reply is no.
I saw there was some interview with Ed Bastian where he was talking about this, but I was like, Wilma. It's the same with the landing in Antarctica video. I was just like, I'm sick. I'm not going to deal with this now. But if you are curious, Ed Bastian did respond to this question himself in an interview. The CEO of Delta.
I just think it doesn't. What? Oh, if they're sorry. Yes. If the question was if they're going to follow United,
yes,
right? Yeah. Okay. Sorry for my brief outburst of shock there.
What?
Okay. Yeah. I think we have to round up. It's been a bumper episode again. It was great, Dan, to have you and Oscar here in Qatar. It genuinely was a blast to see you guys, even though it was, a last minute ambush of you arriving by A350 and just expecting me to be completely available. But of course, I cleared the schedule, lay on the best of the best for you, bring in and fly in guests from Kuwait and from the region, have my friends cancel their plans and join us. And we had a big, great, long gathering. So it was really cool to see you. Thank you for stopping by, and thank you kindly to British Airways for facilitating his visit with the cancellation. That was most appreciated.
Yeah, I mean, I can't say I was super bummed to be like, oh no, I have to go from flying BA to flying Qatar Airways, but I was going to make a video on BA, so it was a bit of a bummer in that sense. I will have the chance to fly BA again soon, I'm sure. I will be looking forward to it.
Lovely. Well, we will have our catch up next week where there'll be plenty more to say, and we will be hearing about what you got up to.
Me getting held at
Kenya,
gunpoint. Yeah.
It involves gunpoint, an arrest, jail. I mean, the truth is I know nothing because you haven't told me anything.
Yeah.
I genuinely had to become serious and message you are you okay? Do you need consular assistance?
No, first
do I
when
need
I
to call
texted
anyone?
you, I was like, I'm in custody. I think it was afterwards. I was like, I was just held at custody at gunpoint, and you were like, ha, caps, and then you were like, oh wait, oh my God, I'm sorry. Are you okay?
Yeah, because I thought, imagine that they said to him, you have, you've got one call, that one call from jail, and you're messaging me, and I'm just in hysterics, and then I go offline for about 3 hours.
Yeah.
Anyway, we are going to hear all about that. I'm going to hear all about that along with the listeners next week, because that sounds wild, and I do hope you are okay.
Yes. Physically, yes. Mentally, I don't know. That's for my therapist.
What the podcast and the therapist is there for. So with that, we'll wrap up today's episode. Thank you guys as usual, and as always, for joining us, for tuning in, for the feedback. You can send plenty of your questions, your talking points to our Instagrams. You know what to do, and you know where to find us.
All right, and we will see you next week on air.
See you later.
Bye bye.